I'm going to help you read a written pattern for this one. You can find the video tutorial on YouTube. It is called Amigurumi to Go, the teddy bear, and she does a very good video tutorial on this pattern. But I'm going to help you read a pattern. This gives specific instructions at the beginning. For example, you work in a continuous round, you don't join, and you take a stitch marker, which I use a bobby pin to mark. I mark the last stitch of each row. You could do the first or the last, but whichever one you start with, continue to do so you can keep track of your rows. The supplies that it calls for is the Red Heart yarn number 4 acrylic. I use any yarn as long as it is the number 4, and it tells you, and acrylic, but you can use any yarn. Just know that if you use anything different than what the instructions suggest, that you will come up with a different size animal. You also use, it says, suggest a 4.5 millimeter hook. I don't go any bigger than a G. I use either an E, an F, or a G because I don't crochet very tightly. So my amigurumis usually come out bigger than what the pattern says. This says that this teddy bear is going to be roughly 7 to 8 inches tall. I done the bunny of this pattern, and it was probably closer to 12 inches tall by the time I was finished. It calls for a blunt darning needle, which is just to sew in the ends. Any needle probably would do. And it calls for scissors, obviously our scissors. It calls for polyfill, which you can just go buy a small bag of it or a huge big box of it. It says buttons, and it says if you use the buttons to use the 10 millimeter, these are 10 millimeters. I get them on Amazon. You can also go buy them in the craft stores of whatever you want. Also, I use different things for when I'm doing my amigurumi. It's going to tell you to whip stitch the nose. I use floss usually instead of yarn to whip stitch the nose. This pattern itself is worked where the head and the body are worked in a continuous piece and they're already attached. But if I have to keep a head from being wobbly, I use these. They're foam curlers. You can get them at the Dollar Tree. Or I will use different dowel rods, different sizes, and I will measure from the top of the head to the bottom of the body, and then I will cut it off, and I will stick that inside the body and in the head as I sew them together. You can also use tacky glue to help keep your yarn in place if you're making a facial expression and the yarn doesn't stay. And you can also use pipe cleaners to put in the arms to help make them bendable. You can also use certain attachments to the arms and legs to cause them to move like a baby doll. I myself have never used those before. So then it goes to the abbreviations for what the stitches are. 2 together is you crochet 2 stitches together or a decrease. And then there is an increase to where you put 2 in 1 stitch. That's in this pattern. And then the back loop only. When you do a decrease, remember to put it in the front loops only, like in the previous videos. And then it tells you how the head and the body are worked. And it's going to tell you where to put the safety eyes and the muzzle and how to do the nose. And tells you how tall it's going to be. And then it starts the instructions. I don't put the body together until I'm finished making everything. I would not put the muzzle on the face or whip stitch the nose until I'm sure that I have them where I want them, and I usually use bobby pins to attach them to the body until I figure out where I want them at, and the arms and the legs and tails and ears and noses and even the eyes. I don't attach them until I have it ready. The only issue is with this pattern, if you do the safety eyes that attach, a piece of the safety eye goes on the inside, and the only way to do that is if you attach the eyes before you start working to the body to give yourself room to get your hand and your fingers up in there to attach them. So you will have to attach the eyes where it tells you to, and just trust that you've made it the right size, that it works out. Or if you're not sure, you can always just do buttons or do whip stitches. Now on this one, it tells you where to start. These are the row numbers that you go. For example, here 9 through 16. Remember, you keep track and make sure each row only gives you one instruction for one row. 9 through 16, you would need to go. You would do the same as for the previous row before it. The number in parentheses is how many V stitches, like we discussed, that you would have in the parentheses when at the end of each row to count, to either put your stitch marker either in number 6 or in number 1. Row 2, 2 single crochets in each stitch equals 12. That means you're going to increase in each stitch all the way around and have 2 stitches, so you've doubled the size in the next row. 1 single crochet and then 2 means you do 1 single crochet in one stitch and then increase in the next stitch, and you repeat this pattern all the way around until you get to your stitch marker. And the same for all of these. 1 single crochet in the next 2 stitches, 1 single crochet in the next 3 stitches, and then an increase. And then 1 single crochet in the next 4, which means you would do 1, 2, 3, 4 single crochets and then increase, and you repeat this pattern, and by the end you should have 36 single crochets. Like I said, she has a very good tutorial video on YouTube, Amigurumi to go, the teddy bear, and she gives good instructions on how to do that. On this one, you're going to start decreasing, so the 2 together means you would decrease and do 2 stitches together. Remember the invisible decrease that we done in a video where you do the front loops of each one only, and then it tells you to start stuffing the head because you're going to start making the body, and it will be very difficult to put the polyfill into that small opening to fill up the head. And then you want to make sure you don't overstuff and cause holes. Instead of tearing off big chunks of the polyfill, you want to tear off little pieces and put them in there. Sometimes it's very tedious, but that's how you keep it from having that lumpy feeling. And then she moves on to weaving in the ends at the bottom of the body, and then you do the muzzle and then the ears, and it suggests what colors to use if you want to use those, and the arms. And then the legs, and obviously on the arms and the legs you make 2, and the tail. And then here's the instructions for the assembly of it. So the written patterns are pretty good at explaining themselves if they have the notes at the beginning and what they mean by the abbreviations of the stitches throughout the pattern, and they're pretty much self-explanatory. So go to Amigurumi to go and search bear on YouTube, and you should be able to find a video tutorial on how to do this written pattern. Thank you.